morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joanne Duclas with the GDN Network. So pleased to have you today and my guests. The GDN is focused on advancing digital credential exchange and learner mobility so that we can help advance rapid access to education and to learning and work. So with our colleagues today, we're doing a feature where we're looking at Mexico, learning about it, uh, tapping into our colleagues for their wonderful expertise, and we will be sharing this material through a case study on the GDN website après this particular webinar, and we'll be taping this webinar as well. So to our wonderful attendees who are joining, please make sure to use the Q&A to ask questions. I will be monitoring it and raising them with our colleagues as we go along. And we'll be keeping any URLs that are shared by anybody that might be useful to all of us. And we'll be posting those on the case study online for all of you. Thank you to my guests, and I would love to have you to say hello to our audience, starting with you, Francisco.
Thank you, Joanne. Good morning to you, and good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone around the world. My name is Francisco Maldonado. I'm the registrar of my institution here in Mexico, city of Puebla. It's a private non-for-profit university institution, and I had the honor and the pleasure to serve in the board of directors of GDN a few years ago. I was the president of the board of directors back in 2019. No, 2021, sorry, 2021 to 2022. And also I have the pleasure and honor to serve in our Mexican Association of Registrars. We have here in Mexico an association of registrars called ARCE, as its acronym. And I had the pleasure and the honor to serve there also as president of the board of directors. So happy to be here to talk about these topics. Joanne, thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Francisco. Louis, please say hello.
Hello to everyone. My name is Luis Lopez Monreal. I am the Academic Regulations Director at Monterrey Tech, Tecnológico de Monterrey. It's a private university in Mexico. We have about 90,000 students in 25 campuses all around Mexico. We have campuses in the main cities in Mexico. We have programs in high school, bachelor's and graduate school. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, John, for the invitation. I have more than 3 years of experience in academic management. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louise. And Ben, please say hello.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Ben Iberly. I work for Educational Credential Evaluators. That's a nonprofit organization based in the US that does work in international credential evaluation. So I've been working at ECE since 2011. I started as an evaluator. Have quite a bit of experience in working with Mexican credentials. And currently, I'm actually the information system specialist at ECE, which means that I work a lot on curating knowledge and research that we do, and specifically work a lot with digital credentials and how we interact with them and use them. So yeah, I'm excited to be here today and talk about the Mexican digital credential systems.
So it's so wonderful. We just had a shout out from one of our audience colleagues saying it's so wonderful to see leadership from our Mexican institutions here today. And they indicated they see many documents from all of you. So thank you for that shout out. We really appreciate it. And thank you as well for using the Q&A. I will keep an eye out, folks, as we go along and bring it in. So please don't hesitate if you have questions. I want to start actually with Luis so that you can share with us a little bit of a slide deck to help set the stage and help us understand the Mexican education system and the Mexican context. So if you wouldn't mind, Luis, can you share your screen and walk us through this story? And I invite my colleagues, if you're comfortable with that, Louise, to chime in at any point if there's an extra comment they wish to make. Over to you, Louise.
Thank you. Can you see the presentation?
We can see it.
Okay. Well, it's a general view of the educational model in Mexico. As you see, we have different levels as in all the other countries in the world. We have the primary school, the secondary school is, the primary and secondary school is 6th to 9th degrees. Then we have the high school level. In the high school level in Mexico could be from 2 to 3 years. After the high school is the higher education. In the higher education, we have bachelor's degrees and the postgraduate degrees. In the postgraduate degrees, we have specialization, master degrees, and doctorate degrees. The bachelor degrees is, as I said before, is 4 to 5 years, and the master degrees is 2 or 3 years, and doctorate degrees is 3 to 5 years. It depends of the school, it depends of the program, it depends of the curriculum program. So as you can see, the educational model in Mexico is similar as the model in other countries. An important situation in Mexico is that for higher education, we could have federal or state regulations. It depends of the decision of the school. So the next slide, you can see specifically in higher education, which are the documents that are issued in the higher education. Basically are 3 documents: the certificado, el título profesional y cédula profesional. Certificado is the transcript, is the traditional transcript, is a document with the courses and the grades of each student. The degree, the título is the diploma that confirm that the degree is finished, and the cédula profesional is the professional license, is the document that the Mexican government allowed to practice the profession. So basically we have these main documents that could be issued at federal level or state level. As you can see in the slide, is the same document but with different format. In the federal level, we have transcript, diploma, and professional in electronic format. We have the documents in the state level too, but not in all the states we have electronic versions or electronic formats for those documents. As you can see, right, in the federal level, we have possibility of confirm electronically in an electronic way the validation. We could validate the documents for the certificate, for the electronic diploma, even for the professional license. And for the state level is more traditional format in some states. In other states are electronic, but the transcript is in paper. The diploma, as you can see, is the diploma of the Universidad de Guadalajara in Jalisco state, and the professional license is in other different state of Coahuila. Those 3 documents are perfectly legal as the federal documents. So is one of the challenge for any university to confirm the to validate those documents. So this is a general overview of our educational model and the document that we issue in the universities in Mexico. I don't know if Francisco would like to complement this information.
Sure, Luis, and if you let me, Joan.
Of course,
Just
yes. I was
thank
going to
you. Just
ask
to
actually.
mention, sorry, just want to mention that these electronic documents, transcript and degree or título and cédula profesional, these documents are electronic since 2018. By law, Mexican law mandates that these documents should be electronic from 2018 to until our days, but paper-based documents are still valid. I mean, if, for example, I studied my bachelor's degree a long time ago, very long time ago, and my documents are still paper-based. But if I want to right now go to university and study a graduate degree, a master's or a doctorate degree, I can take my paper-based documents to the institution and they are perfectly valid. But new documents issued since 2018 to today are mandatory electronic.
So Ben, you have, as a credential evaluation organization that you've represented, you've dealt with a lot of documents electronically or not from Mexico. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. And like Francisco was describing, we've seen lots of variations over time with the changes in the requirements, the electronic diplomas, títulos, that we see now much more commonly for these newer graduates have become a lot easier to use, which has been great. We also, I mean, speaking about Mexico generally, the professional licenses, the cedulas, there have been online registries for those for almost 20 years now. So that's always been something that stood out when processing documents from Mexico on our end, is that the availability of that early on compared to a lot of other countries was always a great thing, a great resource to have.
So I have some questions coming in from the audience, fast and furious. So I just want to make sure I ask those. The first is, for the federally delivered digital documents, are they PDF files or is it electronic documents of some kind? Is it based on a data standard like XML or JSON, or is it just a verification system? Francisco, comments, please.
Yes, Joan, actually, I was talking about this during the last week with Ben. I mean, via email. The authority deliver to the student, to the interested party, two kind or formats of each document. I mean, the certificate or transcript and the diploma or título are both in XML and PDF formats, both formats. And the interested party, the student, have their own both documents, XML and PDF. The legal document is the XML one. The PDF is just a visual representation of the information of the XML document, which is the legal one. I don't know if I'm answering the
Yes,
question.
you are. So then I'll just do a little bit of a small follow-up there to put a pin on this. When you say the legal document, do you mean the legal document from the federal government, from the institution? Like, what do you mean when you say that?
Okay, I mean, if I come with my PDF document to any other institution to continue studies or to study a next level, etc., that's not the legal document. It's just a visual representation of the data contained in the official document, that is one in XML format. what happens is that XML formats are not very understandable, if I can say, to many people. They are not in a friendly format that any human being can read or understand. But in PDF, they can present or show the information in more orderly manner, more comprehensible or understandable manner, so people can understand what they are reading, but the legal, at least inside of Mexico, of course, not outside, not abroad, but inside of Mexico, the legal document is the XML format.
Okay. Luis, you had a follow-up.
Yeah, just want to complement some information. It's important to say that the PDF document, you could find a QR code, and that QR code permit to validate or to verificate the authenticity of the document. The QR connect directly with a website to the Ministry of Education in Mexico and confirm the document.
Okay.
It's printed in the document PDF.
Okay. We might circle back. There might be more questions along those lines. I know I have some, but I want to keep moving forward with some of the questions in the audience. So somebody has asked, is there any information collected to confirm sending emails are legitimate? And would that be available to international institutions around the world or credential evaluators? An example is, how do we know that a sending email from an institution is legitimate? I think this circles back to your comment, Louise and Francisco, about the verification and the QR code. Because if you're questioning the digital document as being legitimate, you could then, for these documents, go back and do a verification with the QR code, correct?
Yes.
And
Correct.
okay, would it be possible for one of you to send the URL to that verification organization via the chat to everyone in the participating today, so that they have that at their fingertips? And again, I want to emphasize, we will be collecting all the URLs and the resources and adding them to the case study we're creating for Mexico on the GDN website. But I do know that if you don't have it at the ready, do know we will catch it from you, Luis, and then we'll add it later. So go ahead, Francisco.
Thank you, Louis. Are you sending the URL
Yes,
for the
yes, I said.
verification system? Okay,
Yes.
just I want to comment, Joanne, for the audience, especially audience outside of Mexico, that this site, this URL that Luis is sharing now via the chat, is valid, or you can find their documents only from the federal level. I mean, you
Ask about
can't
that.
find their documents issued by states' educational authorities. As we saw in the first slide that Luis shared with us, we have both authorities, state and federal, regulating the higher education system. So states' educational authorities obviously issued these kind of documents, transcripts and títulos, diplomas, etc. But those documents are not registered in this website that Luis is sharing with us. So if the documents are in a state level or are from a state authority, educational authority, the validation should be via another means.
Okay. I know that Michelle Rodriguez in the audience has a question. Michelle, unfortunately, I cannot seem to let you in to vocalize your question. So if people could use the Q&A for it, or the chat. I can't see it in the chat. Prefer the Q&A, but happy to take it in the chat. So how do we know which institutions are only, the documents are only available at the state level or the federal level, assuming it's not both? And is it both, or is it only, it might be situations where it's one or the other?
Both.
Both.
Just one institution, for example, my institution has both, has documents from both levels, state and federal. So answering your question, how do you know? You don't. You have to ask to the institution directly to validate maybe the document. If you have doubts if the document is state or federal, you can ask the institution.
Okay. And Ben, as a credential evaluator, you're in the middle of that. So how do you navigate that? Can you give us some suggestions and tips and just highlight some of the challenges?
Yes, and I think, Francisco or Luis, you can correct me on this, or adjust if needed. But what we often rely on is looking to see whether the federal or state entity granted approval for that particular program, that particular degree program to operate. So that's RVOE. You'll see that acronym a lot in dealing with Mexican higher education. That refers to the recognition that was granted for that program to operate, similar to accreditation in the United States. And so if the state education body granted that RVOE, that recognition for that program, we would expect to see the documents issued within the state system as well.
Okay. And if you do have that URL down handy, or Louise, that would be handy to shoot out across as well. One of the questions I have, I noticed on the state level documents, and there's something like, how many states in Mexico? Help me understand that. Francisco?
32, 31 plus the Distrito Federal that now is Mexico City.
So 31 plus Mexico City.
Yes.
So each one of those, and would you happen to know how many institutions are in Mexico? Putting you on the spot a little bit. Post-sec, like higher ed.
I don't know, thousands.
Uh,
Actually,
my number
we-
is my number is about 5,000, but I'm not sure.
in the information I shared with you this or last week, maybe you
Yes.
remember, I mentioned there a number of institutions, both private and public, and just private were easily 3,500 or 4,000, just private.
And one of my colleagues in the audience has asked for the URLs and thinks they're not seeing them in the chat. The team hasn't sent them yet, as far as I know, in the chat. So if any of you have sent it in the chat, do make sure you sent it to everyone that's in the audience. But I'm not seeing any. Have any of you sent a URL yet?
Yes, it's in the chat is the link for authentication or verification of grades or.
So Louise, I'm not seeing what you sent. So if you wouldn't
Oh.
mind shooting those to Amalia, she perhaps could add them to the
Okay.
chat for our
I
audience.
sent to the webinar chat. Maybe Amalia could share with the audience.
Yeah, so I will leave that to Amalia. Thank you for flagging this, team, on the audience. We have another question that's come in. And I'll read you the question, but then I might add some color to it. How are digital credentials managed and factored into student transfer and mobility from school to school? So really, how do you move documents digitally between your two schools, or from high school to your secondary school to your schools, or onwards to master's programs? Are you actually linked or share documents digitally with your partner schools?
Luis?
No, please, Francisco, you first.
Okay.
No, we don't have any automatic process to transfer information. Is the student comes with the papers, and he moves with their papers any place they want to continue their studies.
So this is
Or
actually,
send them their documents via email or USB memory stick or whatever. But it's the student, the one who have to take their own documents and take it to every institution or job or whatever they need.
I did notice, and you also did mention, but on the state, one of the state, I think it was a professional licensure document that was showed, it almost looked like a small credit card. There actually was a QR code on that. So my assumption is that someone who has a professional licensure could actually take that document, and some recipient, employer or other school or hospital or what have you, could scan from that QR code in order to determine its verification, that it's verifiable. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
And is the same true for those digital federal documents?
Yes, here, Joanna, I just wanted to add something. I think this is happening all over the world, but I have to talk about Mexico, that there are the forged documents or false documents also have their own QR code. And we already have false websites validating, obviously, the false documents. So you need some level of expertise to know if this website is not authentic.
So Ben, you do that for your daily work. How do you determine if a Mexican document is authentic? Take us through that business process, that evaluative process.
I would say it all comes down to making sure that you're visiting the correct website. The Mexican government website, either the state or the federal entity. The federal, website we can see in the chat now. That it should be at .sep.gov.mx. Whether it's that particular system that's linked to in the chat or the registry of these professional licenses, the cédulas profesionales, making sure that you are actually at that exact URL with an active security certificate. We have seen, like Francisco was saying, falsified documents that included links, QR codes to websites with an extremely similar URL, or ones that are trying to make their website look as similar as possible to the official government websites. So making sure that you have the correct URL documented and are checking every time you visit those websites to authenticate.
And when you can't do that, how do you authenticate a document that isn't digital? What's that process?
If any of those things don't work, which that is a challenge sometimes, especially more with like the state website, so that can happen with the federal websites too, that those websites are just down for whatever reason, aren't accessible that week or that day, then we are generally contacting the higher education institution directly to confirm the authenticity of the documents.
So you only do that when you can't verify them through the official sites.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was actually one of the questions from our audience, and they also kindly shared the URL that they used. So I'm going to push that question out to the audience so that they see it. Go ahead, Ben, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, and I know one of the previous questions was asking, I think, about like, I think they were asking, which email address should you expect to receive documents from, or a response about authenticity of documents. And the answer to that, in my experience, would be that it varies from institution to institution. Generally, you're expecting someone, from an office like Francisco or Luis's, but there's not a complete, national level directory of those contacts. So it's up to checking each institution.
So this actually opens the door for the art of the possible. Sorry, Louise, you had your hand up. Did you want to add?
Just to comment that in my case, each week I receive many verifications, many cases for verification from many places all over the world. Each week, in my case, I don't know, Francisco, I think it's more or less the same situation.
Yes, sure. Mostly from WES, WES,
World Education
WS,
Services,
World
yeah.
Education Services, mostly from them, but from others also.
So when you receive things from around the world, you're also relying on credential evaluation service providers like ECE, WES, etc. And so you see those. One of the community mentioned that sometimes it's when you go through the verification site, which you shared and has now been cascaded out to everyone, that it verifies to a certain level, but it doesn't necessarily go into the details on courses and the grades and so on. In a situation like that, is an evaluator or another school, they'll have to contact whom directly? I mean, how do you solve for that? Is that information even accessible? Go ahead, Ben.
And can I can share a redacted sample of what that looks like as well.
Okay, why don't you do that? Go ahead.
Yeah, real
Walk
quick.
us through that. Thank you, Ben.
Hold on one second, please. All right, can everyone see that slide?
Yes.
Great. So this is in the federal system on the website that was linked to in the chat, CGED. And so this transcript or certificado on the left showing someone's courses, credits, and grades, certificado total de estudios from this licenciatura program. It does have a QR code in the bottom left, as you can see. So if you scan that QR code, it will take you to the website that's shown on the right. You can also enter the folio number manually to find this document. And then what the website gives you, like the person was asking about, is not the complete information that's on this transcript. It shows the average grade, the promedio of 8.8, but it doesn't show, every individual course and every individual grade. So that's something we would love to see a change in this a system like this federal one. And I think, Joanne, you had mentioned, thinking about what is possible, and that's something we would love to be able to see.
And Louis and Francisco, as large institutions that probably rely on this site as well, how would you go about influencing evolution of that system so that more information could be added? What would be involved? I'll start with Francisco.
Well, I don't know if Luis is agree with me, but it involves maybe negotiations, lobby with the authority, because all these documents are issued by authority, or issued or authenticated by the educational authority. So here in Mexico, we just can do what authority allows us to do. We can't do any different from the law or the authority let us to do. So if we want for the transcript, for example, or the verification system, CGED, show us the detailed content of each transcript, for example, we need to negotiate, we lobby with the authority, because the system, they own that system. The system is from the government, is not from institutions. Many of us, maybe Luis can comment more, many of us go directly to the educational institution to ask for the content of the document. I mean, I know the document, I know by the website that the document is authentic, that is issued or granted to this student in that date, etc. But to know the content of the document, we used to look for the educational institution. At least when other institutions ask us to authenticate some document, for example, the transcript, we verify course by course, grade by grade, to see if it's authentic.
So you
And the
do that
information
directly.
is authentic.
You do that directly with the home institution.
Yes.
Luis, you had a comment.
So just to confirm that Francisco said, is really hard to negotiate with the government because it change continuously. And for me, is there a lot of opportunities to share information between universities in Mexico. But the politicians, the situation of different states and so on, it complicate the relation with the government. So we need to negotiation, lobbying, and a lot of meetings to achieve some little advantage. So
Yeah.
at the end, we have to connect directly the other university to ask the information, and it's the traditional way to validate documents. At
Yeah.
least for me.
And I have a sort of go ahead, Francisco, and then I have a follow-up from our audience.
Thank you, Jan. Just to add a last comment about this. This is because all this negotiation, lobby, and that meetings is because everything that we want to see in a document, official document issued by the government, have first to go to law.
Okay.
They have to include all these kind of things in a law. So it's not that easy to change a law. Because, I think it's the same in many countries. It depends on many factors, many issues, including the priorities of the politicians.
Of course.
So
And
some things that are easy or would be very easy to change are not in the priorities, maybe.
So I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. We'll come back to that in a minute. But you receive documents yourselves from secondary school, which I had a first question. Is your secondary school 14 years or 12? It looked like it was 14 on your diagram. It's 14, right? Okay.
14.
14 years. So when you get a learner coming into you from a high school, and I'm going to ask the same question of you, Ben. When you get a learner with that credential, how do you validate it and verify it? Through the same system, or walk us through that?
It depends. It depends of the origin of the document. If the document is federal, for example, is in the federal system, and it has a QR code, we can start by reading the QR code. If the document is not from a federal system but a state, we have two options. To ask to the state government specific of the state that is issuing this document, or go directly to the institution, educational institution. We used to go directly to the educational institution because the chances of we get a response are bigger than if we ask to the government.
And Ben, from your perspective as a credential evaluation organization, do you get many that's just high school from Mexico? And if so, whether or not you do, when you do, how do you handle them?
Yes, we get many secondary level documents from Mexico. And in terms of the systems for authentication, like Francisco was saying, they're very similar to the systems for post-secondary. In some cases for the federal system on the same websites. So the practices we follow are very similar. The thing I would say is that we often encounter, I think, additional challenges with secondary documentation, especially with, I believe that with some of the very recent last 5 years changes, some of the states in particular are issuing or will only issue an electronic document now, a PDF that has a QR code for some of their graduates. And they're not even offering paper documents, which then we end up in a situation where the verification of that document, that PDF, looks very similar to the example I showed. It just verifies that they graduated, and if we want to verify their individual grades, then we end up having to contact the school or the particular state authority, which can end up, you having to navigate some of the bureaucracy there. And the students are kind of caught in the middle because they're told that they can't get any other type of document.
So I'm going to ask what maybe sound like a silly question, but it came to mind. With a 14-year system, are you, Ben, in your experience, ever giving transfer credit for that, or do you treat it as fully high school?
No, we treat the graduation at the end of secondary in Mexico as equivalent to the high school diploma in the United States or Canada.
And Francisco and Luis, when you're admitting a high school student, are you doing the same thing?
Yes.
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 And Luis, I see you have your hand up, so you wanted to do a
Yes.
follow-up.
Can I make a question to Ben? Is valid?
Yeah.
Okay. Ben, how often do you find fake documents, and what do you do when it happens?
I don't have numbers in front of me, unfortunately, on how often. My understanding is that we receive them more frequently for secondary documents than for higher education. And over the course of a year, I think on a regular basis, but it's not incredibly common. In those situations, like we were saying, contacting the relevant institution to confirm whether or not they're authentic, and once we receive that response, dealing with the case from there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's interesting. And I see Meg validated what you were saying, Ben. Other credential evaluators may ask the same. I do have a question from the audience, so I want to pull it in. And I'll read you the question, and I'm going to add color to it. Are the official documents, so transcripts, diplomas, integrated with programs to help students find jobs or help employers find new employees? My color to that, another way of asking what I think Wayne's asking, is say you have a university student that wants to become some kind of employee for an organization and also did some kind of internship or some kind of other work experience from even either yourselves or another provider. Is there anything that you do with your documents to recognize that more work-based learning? In my work, we call that work integrated learning. In the US, there's a lot of work around learner and employer records, which I know Francisco's familiar with, and Ben perhaps as well from our prior Oslo, San Diego convening that you were at. Any comments around that? Is this a space you've even gone into? Are you capturing any of that information on any type of official document?
Luis?
Well, in my case, in my university, we are starting to offer to the students a certificate of competencies or learning outcomes. It's a very local document. It's not official, but I think it offers interesting information for employers to and for the curriculum of the students. Is in that document we include competencies, alternative credentials, and other things. But we
Okay,
are starting with that
micro-credentials.
document. Yes.
Interesting. And do
Yes,
you do that, Francisco?
thank you, Joan. This is more in an institutional level because we can't modify the official documents, the transcript, the diploma, etc. We can't modify them because they come from a system, a rigid, etc. So in case the institution, like Luis's or mine, wants to give the student some other kind of credentials, we can do it, but from our institutions, they are not recognized by the government. But I think there is no need by now that the government recognize this kind of credentials. As Luis say, alternate credentials, micro credentials, or for us, we have a special academic history, a separate academic history, or curriculum, or cardex, as you can call it, as you want to call it, with the extracurricular or co-curricular activities where the student participated during their studies. I mean, was in the soccer team and was in the project of leadership in something, etc. So we have this information and we can give it to the student. It's not recognized by the government, but in jobs, for example, organizations or jobs, I think, I don't know, Luis, what think about this, but I think employers, organizations accept very well this kind of additional credentials.
And Ben, when you're doing credential evaluation and you would get, I don't know, do you get those kinds of documents? Do you use them at all?
So it's interesting. I was reflecting on that as Francisco was describing it, and I think for us it comes down to an institution by institution basis because of that dichotomy that he was describing, where there's the official document that is mandated to have certain components, and for our academic evaluation purposes, those are what we generally expect to see. If the institution then is having to go and create, a different format of academic record that includes these different, additional components that they want to be able to include, that can be really useful for a lot of purposes, but some of the institutions create them and they don't include the kind of information that we expect to see in terms of the academics. So it can create confusion for students, I think, in some cases, but it really just depends on the institution and what they've put into these non-standard document formats.
So all the discussions worldwide and UNESCO, when they talk about the Global Convention and recognizing lifelong learning and so on, would Francisco and Luis, when you think about micro-credentials, when you think about recognizing other forms of learning, and when you think about even admission into your own institutions, recognition of prior learning that may be different than regular high school, would you say Mexico is in the beginning stages of exploring some of these spaces?
Luis?
Yes. Please, Francisco.
No, please go on, you, Luis.
Oh, yes, we are in the early stages of that complement information and micro credentials and competencies. I think these universities are starting to design curriculum based on competencies more than in knowledge, but it's step by step. We are starting, the government is starting to work in complement documents that reflect that extracurricular knowledge, but is in the early stages here in Mexico.
So that's an opportunity. That's an area
Yes.
where we could potentially work together and help create opportunities and learn. When I see the QR code, it makes me think that the technology that's being used is distributed technology, W3C technology of some kind, perhaps blockchain or something else. Do you know what technology the government is using for those QR code setups that you have?
Actually, I don't.
No, me neither.
But I don't think it's blockchain.
You
I
don't.
don't know what it
No,
is,
it's not
but it's not blockchain.
Yes, I'm sure that it's not blockchain. I'm not sure which technology is, but
Okay.
it's not blockchain.
So an opportunity for a webinar on another day to probe on that particular point. Same for the micro-credentials and recognizing lifelong learning and alternative forms. So we'll pin those topics as potential ones we'll bring forward later. Go ahead, Francisco.
Joanne, I don't know if this makes sense to experts in IT, but I don't know if say this is the technology, but as I said in the first minutes of this webinar, is the format in XML format, because we all institutions send the information to the government, to the educational authority via XML format. We put together the XML files and then send them to the authority. And the authority, I think, register these XML documents, the content of the documents, in some sort of database. So I don't know if this is a technology, but it's the format, at least.
Well, and I know there's different versions of XML and so on. I won't ask those questions, but my impression then is you're all using the same XML format in your region that has been part of the expectations for the government in order to deliver on that verification system. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes, could be.
Okay.
Could be, but I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure.
Okay. And Ben, in your work with ECE, have you made any sort of connections or been able to make technology connections through APIs to the system you're using for verification? Or is it you go always to the website?
We're always using the website at this point. But I think,
Okay.
like you were saying, it seems like a great opportunity if, this process exists that is digital, from the institutions to the government. There's an opportunity there, but like was referenced earlier, the political barriers are probably pretty difficult to overcome.
And I will say this, I see this all over the world, and I've experienced it myself, where it's about priorities, it's about funding, it's about legislation, etc. I don't think Mexico is unique in some of these paces and places, and so it's good to see that there is this verification system. And back to the professional point, what I find interesting is regardless of whether it's state or federal, it's clear on the professional licensure side, they've obviously made it a priority for that particular prong to be more digitized. Is that a correct assumption on my part? And
Yes.
talk about a professional licensure. What would be some examples? What is a sample profession? Is teaching? Is it computer science? Is it what type of professions? Ben, might you be able to answer that?
Yes, yeah. I mean, my understanding is the cedula is available. Any graduate with a licenciatura, with a licenciado, can apply for a license. So it really covers any field. We see them most frequently since applying for that is optional. We see them most frequently with some of the more traditional fields, including teaching and engineers, dentists, doctors.
It's interesting as well. I'm doing another project helping teaching regulators, and their credential evaluation is very detailed where they need to look closely at coursework and the grades for that coursework, the nature of the practicum, the number of the number of credits, etc. Um, do you find that you have to really then contact the former institution to get that more information because of the limited verification through that system that you showed us earlier?
Yes, in some cases it can come down to contacting the institution. If we're looking for really details about the program, many of the Mexican institutions and universities have great websites that have details of the study plans for each program, the curriculum. So we're frequently visiting those universities to look at exactly how their program is structured and the details of it.
Interesting. And I do have a question. I'm going to do the last question from our audience, given the time. What percentage of students accepted into universities subsequently complete their program and graduate? And this is for students graduating from Mexico. Putting you a bit on the spot, Francisco and Luis, you may not have data for all across Mexico. Is that kind of data even available for all across Mexico?
Sorry, Joan, I lost the question because I have some noise here.
Do you have in Mexico a place you could go to, perhaps a government website, or where you can actually see how many students are applying to Mexican universities, how many are completing their program, how many are graduating? You don't have something like that for all of Mexico, do
Yes.
you? You do have something like that?
Actually, we have that kind of indicators for our institution, but there are some. Actually, I know just one site to know this information about all the country. That is the Anuario se llama. Anuario is the name. Is like I don't know how to say this word in English. Anuario, Luis.
I don't know, maybe
I don't know if
annual report or something like
maybe annual report from
Ah,
ANUYES, which is the Association of all universities in Mexico, both private and public. And they used to make and publish an annual report with all these numbers in summary. I mean, they not present institution by institution, but they present state by state.
interesting. So, because we've been having some problems with the chat, I'm going to ask you to make sure you get us that URL if you could track it down for us. We will add it to the case study. Thank you, Ben. We'll add it to the case study that we're doing and publishing online for everybody. And I want to say thank you so much. We've identified some possible opportunities, some challenges that you spoke of, as well as some real realities on the ground in Mexico in terms of verification opportunities. And I've really appreciated Ben also having that ECE perspective. And I can't thank enough having representatives, and I see this coming into the chat, that colleagues are really appreciative from your community to have RC represented in today's session. It's an honor to always work with you, and I would love to be able to work with you on more seminars and webinars as we continue to build out. Having been, as Francisco knows, to the GDN in Mexico a couple of years ago, where we were in Pueblo, etc., it was such an inspiring experience, and I can't thank you enough. My colleagues that have joined us today, please remember the GDN Oslo convening, both Louise, sorry about that, both Louise and Francisco will be presenting in Oslo at the GDN network meeting in October 29th to 31st. I encourage you to check it out. Amalia has sent the URL to our convening in the chat. Thrilled to have all of you here. We will be publishing this webinar on our case study on our website. And we will also make sure that we continue to talk with RC colleagues so that we can extend the webinars. Thank you to our patrons and our signatories who joined me today. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.